The first snowfall of winter came early that year, dusting the ancient forest in crystalline white. Ellie pulled her threadbare cloak tighter against the bitter wind as she searched for winter berries among the frosted undergrowth. The basket on her arm was nearly empty. Lady Isolde would be furious if she returned to the manor house without enough for the evening's feast. Again. A flash of gold caught her eye through the skeletal trees. Strange. Nothing in these woods glowed like that. Ellie pushed through a thicket of brambles, wincing as thorns caught her skin, and stumbled into a small clearing. Her breath stopped. A man lay collapsed in the snow, his body twisted at an unnatural angle. No, not a man. The pointed ears and ethereal beauty marked him as something far more. Blood pooled beneath him, so dark it looked black against the white ground. His leather armor was shredded, and a massive wound gaped across his chest, pulsing with a sickly green light that made her stomach turn. The glows she'd seen came from intricate golden marks covering his exposed skin, marks that flickered like dying embers. He was dying. She could feel it somehow, a wrongness in the air that made her magic-starved blood sing with warning. His eyes cracked open. They were the color of storm clouds shot through with silver lightning, and they fixed on her with devastating intensity. "Run," he rasped, blood bubbling at his lips. "The poison, it spreads, will consume everything near." Ellie should have run. Any sensible person would have. The Fae were dangerous, their politics deadly, and their magic beyond mortal comprehension. She was nothing, a servant girl with barely a drop of Fae blood, just enough to be useful for menial enchantments and looked down upon by both humans and true Fae alike. But she'd watched her mother die when she was 8. Helpless and small. She'd sworn then she'd never stand by again when she could act. She dropped to her knees beside him, her hands hovering over the wound. The green poison writhed like living serpents beneath his skin, spreading with each heartbeat. "I can help," she said, though she had no idea if that was true. "Foolish girl. Shadow venom, crafted to kill immortals. It will devour your life force." "Then we don't have much time." Ellie pressed her palms to his chest, ignoring the way the poison immediately began crawling up her arms like ice fire. She closed her eyes and reached for the tiny well of power inside her, the pathetic trickle of magic she'd been born with. Lady Isolde called it barely worth the trouble of feeding her, useful only for lighting candles and warming bathwater. She poured everything she had into him. The poison recoiled from her touch, and for a moment, just a heartbeat, she felt something vast and ancient stir within her own blood, something that recognized the golden marks on his skin, something that sang in harmony with his fading power. The green light guttered and died. Dylan's eyes widened, the silver lightning in them flaring bright. His hand shot up and gripped her wrist with shocking strength. "What are you?" Before she could answer, the trees around them erupted with dark figures. Assassins, their faces hidden behind masks of shadow, descended into the clearing with weapons drawn. The air crackled with killing magic. Dylan tried to rise and collapsed, still too weak. His jaw clenched with frustration. "Behind me, now!" "You can barely stand!" "I said, behind me, woman!" There was such authority in his voice that she obeyed instinctively, scrambling behind his broad shoulders. He raised one hand, and despite his weakened state, power exploded from his palm. A wall of golden fire that sent 3 assassins flying backward into the trees. But there were 2. Many. A blade whistled toward Ellie's throat. She threw up her hands in pure instinct, and light burst from her palms. Not the weak flicker she was used to. This was blinding, ancient, furious. The assassin screamed and disintegrated into ash. The remaining attackers hesitated, their shadowy forms flickering with uncertainty. Then they vanished, melting into the darkness between the trees as quickly as they'd come. Silence fell over the clearing. Dylan stared at her, his storm-gray eyes burning with an intensity that made her want to look away. But she couldn't. She was trapped in that gaze, drowning in it. You just wielded firstborn magic, the power of the original bloodlines. His voice held wonder and something that might have been fear. Who are you, truly? I'm nobody, just Ellie. I work in Lady Isolde's kitchens. Impossible. You carry the blood of the first ones. I can feel it now, singing to my own. He swayed, his face going pale. The exertion had cost him. Help me to my feet. We must leave before they return with reinforcements. She wedged herself under his arm, staggering under his weight. He was easily a foot taller than her and built like a warrior, all lean muscle and lethal grace despite his injuries. Where can we go? I have a room at the manor, but... No. They tracked me here. They will search every dwelling within leagues. There is... He paused, looking down at her with an expression she couldn't read. There is a safe house, 2 miles north. Can you manage? I'll manage. They stumbled through the forest together, the snow falling heavier now, covering their tracks. Dylan's breathing grew labored, and twice he nearly collapsed. Each time, Ellie felt that strange resonance between them grow stronger, her meager power somehow sustaining him, keeping him conscious. She should have been terrified. She was alone in the wilderness with an unknown Fey warrior, assassins hunting them, her hands still tingling with power she didn't understand. But instead she felt right. As if every step she'd taken in her insignificant life had led her to this moment, to him. The safe house turned out to be a hunter's cottage, abandoned and half collapsed. Dylan muttered something in a language that made the air shimmer, and suddenly the cottage transformed, whole and warm, with a fire already crackling in the hearth and furs piled on a bed in the corner. Glamour magic. Powerful glamour magic. He collapsed onto the bed with a groan that he tried to stifle. His pride wouldn't allow weakness, she could see that, but his body was reaching its limits. Let me look at your wounds properly. You have done enough. More than enough. You should leave before what? Before I help you not die? Not a chance. A ghost of a smile touched his lips. Stubborn creature. She helped him remove his shredded armor, trying to ignore the way her hands trembled at the sight of his bare chest, unmarred by scars despite the battle damage, covered in those mesmerizing golden marks that seemed to pulse in rhythm with her own heartbeat. The wound was closing now, knitting together with unnatural speed, but she could see the effort it cost him. What are those marks? I've never seen anything like them. His expression shuddered. Ancient wards, protection magic. He was lying, or at least not telling the whole truth, but she let it pass, focusing instead on cleaning the remaining traces of shadow venom from his skin with water from the cottage's enchanted well. You asked who I am. He caught her wrist gently, his thumb brushing over her racing pulse. My name is Dylan, and I owe you a life debt that cannot be easily repaid. You don't owe me anything. Anyone would have. No, they would not have. Most would have fled or tried to use my weakness for their own gain. You risked your life, your very soul, to save a stranger. That is," his voice softened, "that is rare, precious." Heat flooded her cheeks. No one had ever looked at her the way he was looking at her now. Like she mattered. Like she was worth something more than the scraps from Lady Isolde's table. "I should gather more firewood. It's getting dark." She fled outside before he could protest, gulping the cold air. Her heart hammered against her ribs. What was she doing? This was madness. He was clearly someone important. Those marks, that power, the assassins hunting him. And she was nothing. Nobody. A half-breed servant who would be beaten for missing the evening meal preparation. When she returned with an armload of wood, Dylan was sitting up, his color better. The golden marks on his skin had brightened, pulsing with steady light. "Tell me about yourself, Ellie, who works in kitchens. Where do you come from?" She fed logs into the fire, avoiding his gaze. "There's not much to tell. My mother died when I was young. I don't remember my father. She never spoke of him. Lady Isolde took me in as a servant when she discovered I had enough magic to be useful. That's all." "Your mother, did she ever speak of her bloodline? Her family?" "No. She had no family that I knew of. We were alone." Dylan was silent for a long moment, his eyes tracing her features with unnerving focus. "The power you displayed earlier, that is not the magic of a servant. That is the magic of royalty, of the first ones who walked these realms when the world was young." "That's impossible. You felt it yourself. I have barely any power at all. That was just fear, desperation." "No, it was awakening. Something in you recognized me, recognized the threat, and rose to meet it. Your true nature is buried, suppressed, but it is there." He stood, moving with the fluid grace of a predator despite his recent injuries, and crossed to where she knelt by the fire. "Ellie, I need you to trust me. Those assassins were not random bandits. They were sent by someone who wants me dead. Someone powerful enough to acquire shadow venom, a poison that has not been seen in this realm for 1,000 years." "Why are you telling me this?" "Because you are now entangled in this, whether you wish it or not. You saved my life. You revealed your power. They will come for you to discover what you are, to use you against me or eliminate you as a threat." His hand cupped her jaw, tilting her face up to meet his eyes. "I will not allow that. You are under my protection now." "I don't understand any of this. Who are you really? Why would anyone want you dead badly enough to use ancient poison?" He hesitated, conflict clear in his expression. Then he sighed and released her, turning to stare into the flames. "I am Dylan of the High Court, Crown Prince of the Western Realm." He glanced back at her, gauging her reaction. "And many would see me dead to claim my throne." The room spun. Crown Prince. She'd saved the Crown Prince. Why didn't you say something?" "When? Between the poison eating my organs and the assassins trying to kill us both?" He moved back to the bed, suddenly looking exhausted. "Besides, for a few precious hours I was simply Dylan, a warrior in need. Not a prince, not an heir, not a piece in endless political games. It was refreshing." Ellie's mind raced. This changed everything. She needed to get back to the manor, to disappear before anyone connected her to his disappearance. Lady Isolde would sell her to his enemies without hesitation if there was profit in it. As if reading her thoughts, Dylan spoke. You cannot return to your lady's house. They will be watching, waiting. I have to. If I don't return, she'll... She will what? Beat you? Sell you? Cast you out? His voice dropped to a dangerous purr. You are mine now, under my protection. No one touches what is mine. The casual claim sent shivers down her spine, fear and something else she didn't want to examine too closely. I don't belong to anyone. No, you do not. Poor choice of words. He ran a hand through his dark hair, frustration evident. What I mean is, I owe you my life. I will not abandon you to face the consequences of saving me. Please, stay here tonight, at least. In the morning, I will have recovered enough to escort you somewhere safe. She should refuse, should run. But where would she go? And something in her, that newly awakened power perhaps, whispered that her fate was tied to his now, for better or worse. One night. Then I need to figure out what to do with my life. Relief flickered across his face. Thank you. They ate in silence, food that appeared from nowhere, another glamour trick. And when exhaustion finally claimed her, Ellie curled up on the floor by the fire despite Dylan's protests that she take the bed. She woke to screaming. Dylan thrashed on the bed, caught in the grip of a nightmare, his power lashing out in golden waves that scorched the air. The cottage groaned under the assault, furniture splintering. Dylan, wake up! She grabbed his arm without thinking, and the moment her skin touched his, something inside her erupted. Her power, that hidden well of ancient magic, surged up to meet his, twining together, calming the storm. The golden marks on his skin blazed bright, and identical marks suddenly appeared on her own arms, glowing in perfect mirror. His eyes snapped open, wild and unfocused. Then they locked on her face, on their joined hands, on the matching marks binding them. Impossible. The soul mark. But that only appears when... He sat up slowly, never breaking eye contact. You are my matched soul. My fated one. What? No, that's not... I'm nobody. You said it yourself. I'm royalty somehow, but that doesn't make me... The marks do not lie. They have not appeared on my skin in 3,000 years of searching. Every noble lady in the realm has been paraded before me, hoping to trigger the bond. And now you, a kitchen servant who saved a dying stranger, you bear my soul mark. He laughed, the sound edged with hysteria and wonder. The fates have a wicked sense of humor. 3,000 years? But you can't be... No one lives that long except... The truth crashed over her like ice water. The Immortal King. Dylan wasn't just Crown Prince. He was the Immortal King of legend, the firstborn son of the gods themselves, who had ruled the Fey realms since the dawn of time. And she was his fated mate. I think I need to sit down. You are sitting down. Then I need to lie down. He caught her before she could topple over, pulling her onto the bed beside him. His arms came around her, solid and warm and impossibly safe for someone who was probably the most dangerous being in all the realms. Breathe. Just breathe. I know this is overwhelming. Overwhelming? I'm a servant girl who can barely light a candle, and you're telling me I'm soul-bound to an immortal king who's been alive since before recorded history. You are far more than a servant girl. The magic you possess, the way your power responded to mine, that is ancient blood. First bloodline, which means somewhere in your ancestry is someone very, very powerful. His fingers traced the glowing marks on her arm. These patterns, I have seen them before, long ago. They match the royal line of the Northern Court. The Northern Court? But they were destroyed centuries ago. Everyone knows that story. The entire royal family was slaughtered in the Betrayal War. Everyone knows that story. But what if it is not entirely true? What if someone survived? A child, perhaps, smuggled away in the chaos, hidden, raised in obscurity to protect them from those who orchestrated the massacre. Her mother's face flashed in her memory, beautiful, sad, always looking over her shoulder. The way she'd forbidden Ellie from ever using her magic in front of others. The strange lullabies in a language Ellie didn't understand. The single piece of jewelry her mother had owned, a silver pendant with a symbol Ellie had never been able to identify. A symbol that matched the markings now glowing on her skin. Oh, gods. My mother, she was running from something. Always afraid, always hiding. I am sorry, truly. But if your heritage is what I suspect, then you are not only my soul match, you are also the rightful heir to the Northern Throne, and that makes you incredibly dangerous to those who have claimed that power in your family's absence. The cottage door exploded inward. Dark figures poured through, more assassins, but these were different, clad in the crimson and black of the Southern Court. Leading them was a woman of breathtaking beauty and terrible power. Her silver hair flowing like water, her violet eyes cold as winter ice. Lady Ravenna, the Southern Court's High Priestess and Dylan's most vocal opponent on the High Council. Ravenna! I should have known you were behind this. She laughed, the sound like breaking glass. Dear Dylan, did you truly think you could bind yourself to some half-breed mongrel without consequences? Her gaze raked over Ellie with pure contempt. Look at her. She's pathetic, barely worthy of scrubbing floors, let alone bearing the soul mark of a king. Ellie flinched, the words striking deep. Because wasn't it true? She was nothing, nobody, completely unsuited for... Dylan's power erupted, a wave of golden fury that sent Ravenna's guards flying. He stood, placing himself between Ellie and the intruders, radiating lethal intent. You will not speak of her that way. Ever. Or what? You will execute me? I am a high priestess of the Southern Court, protected by ancient law. You cannot touch me without declaring war on my entire house. Ravenna's smile was poison sweet. But I can challenge her. By right of blood and power, I can demand trial by combat for the position of your consort. After all, she bears the mark, but has not been confirmed by the High Court. The council must approve any soul match before the bond is sealed. Dylan's jaw clenched. That law has not been invoked in over a millennium. But it still stands. And I invoke it now. Your little pet must face me in the arena of stars before the assembled court and prove herself worthy. Her eyes glittered with malice. Of course, if she is too frightened to accept, she can always sever the soul bond and crawl back to whatever hovel spawned her. Severing a soul bond was supposed to be agonizing, potentially fatal to both parties. Ravenna was betting that Ellie would be too afraid to fight, too convinced of her own inadequacy. And she was right. Ellie was terrified. She had no training, no real understanding of her power. no business standing against a high priestess who had centuries of combat experience. But she looked at Dylan, at the barely concealed anguish in his eyes, the tension in his shoulders, the way his hands clenched into fists because he could not intervene without breaking sacred law, and something fierce and stubborn rose in her chest. She had not survived her mother's death, years of abuse from Lady Isolde, and a childhood of being told she was worthless just to give up now. I accept your challenge, High Priestess. Dylan whirled to face her. Ellie, no! You do not have to do this. We will find another way. There is no other way. You know that. She stepped up beside him, lifting her chin to meet Ravenna's contemptuous gaze. I accept. When and where? Tomorrow at sunset. The Arena of Stars. Do try not to die too quickly, mongrel. I want the court to see exactly what you are before I end you. Ravenna swept out with her guards, leaving destruction in her wake. The moment they were gone, Dylan grabbed Ellie's shoulders. What have you done? Ravenna is one of the most powerful mages in all the realms. She has killed champions and destroyed armies. You cannot face her. I have to, for both of us. She placed her hand over his heart, feeling it pound beneath her palm. You said I carry ancient blood. First bloodline. Then I'll just have to hope that's enough. Hope is not a strategy. I cannot lose you, not when I have only just found you. The raw emotion in his voice made her heart clench. This immortal king, this being of legends and unimaginable power, was afraid. For her. Then teach me. You have until sunset tomorrow. Teach me how to fight. What followed was the most grueling day of Ellie's life. Dylan drove her relentlessly, forcing her power to the surface again and again until her entire body shook with exhaustion. He taught her to shape her magic into shields and weapons, to read an opponent's movements, to exploit weaknesses. But more than that, he taught her about herself, about the legacy flowing through her veins, the Northern Court's legendary mastery over ice and starlight, their ability to bend reality itself to their will. As the sun began to set, painting the sky in shades of crimson and gold, Dylan called a halt. Ellie collapsed onto the ground, gasping, every muscle screaming. He knelt beside her, offering water. You are magnificent, strong and fierce and braver than warriors who have trained for centuries. I can barely stand. Your body will recover. What matters is that you have connected to your power, learned to trust it. The rest. He cupped her face in his hands. The rest is instinct and will, and you have both in abundance. What if it's not enough? What if I fail and the bond breaks? Then I will follow you into whatever darkness claims you, because I cannot exist in a world without you in it. Soul match is not just a pretty phrase, Ellie. It means you are the other half of me, the missing piece I have searched for across millennia. I would burn all the realms to ash before I let anyone take you from me. The intensity of his declaration should have frightened her. Instead, it kindled an answering fire in her own chest. Then I won't fail. I won't give up. Not on this. Not on us. He kissed her then, deep and desperate and claiming, and she felt their powers surge together, gold and silver starlight twining into something stronger than either alone. The soul marks on their skin blazed so bright they lit up the darkening cottage. When they finally pulled apart, both breathing hard, Dylan rested his forehead against hers. Win or lose tomorrow, you are mine, and I am yours. Nothing will change that. Not law, not the High Court, not even death itself. Promise me something. Anything. If I fall, if Ravenna kills me, you don't do anything stupid. You don't declare war or destroy the Southern Court or any of that. You find someone else, someone worthy. Stop. There is no one else. There will never be anyone else. You are my fated match, Ellie, the only one in all of existence. His voice gentled. But you will not fall. I have faith in you, even if you do not yet have faith in yourself. The next evening, Dylan escorted her through the portal to the High Court, a city of impossible spires and floating gardens where magic saturated the very air. Ellie had never seen anything like it, and under other circumstances she might have been awed, but all she could focus on was the arena of stars looming ahead, a massive amphitheater carved from crystal and starlight. Thousands had gathered to watch. The scandal of the Immortal King finding his soul match in an unknown servant had spread like wildfire through the court. Everyone wanted to see the half-breed mongrel who dared claim their king. The arena floor was empty except for 2 circles of power, one for each combatant. Ravenna was already there, resplendent in crimson, armor that seemed to be woven from living flame. Her power crackled around her like a storm, and the crowd roared its approval. Dylan walked Ellie to her circle, his hand never leaving hers until the last possible moment. Remember, you do not have to match her power for power. You only have to survive until she makes a mistake. Every fighter has a weakness. Find hers. And if I can't? You will. I know you will. You are stronger than you realize, Ellie of the Northern Court. Show them what you truly are. He released her hand and stepped back to the royal viewing box, though every line of his body screamed that he wanted to stay, to fight in her place. The High Arbiter, an ancient elf with silver eyes and a voice like thunder, raised his staff. This is a formal challenge for the right of consort to His Eternal Majesty, King Dylan of the Western Realm. Lady Ravenna of the Southern Court challenges Ellie, claimant of the Northern Bloodline, to trial by combat. The duel will continue until one party yields or is rendered incapable of fighting. Do both parties accept these terms? I accept. Ravenna's smile was all teeth. Ellie's voice shook, but she forced the words out. I accept. Then let the trial begin. Ravenna struck immediately, a lance of crimson fire that should have incinerated Ellie where she stood. But Ellie threw up her hands and her power responded. A shield of starlight and ice that shattered the attack into harmless sparks. The crowd gasped. Ravenna's eyes narrowed. Lucky block, mongrel. Let us see how you handle this. She unleashed a barrage of attacks, each one more vicious than the last, forcing Ellie back step by step. Fire and shadow and cutting wind that tore at her skin and clothing. Ellie defended desperately, her shields weakening under the relentless assault. She was going to lose. Ravenna was too strong, too experienced, too... Is this all the great Northern Bloodline amounts to? Pathetic. You are not worthy to clean my boots, let alone claim a king. Something in Ellie snapped. Not the insult to herself, she was used to those. But the contempt in Ravenna's voice when she spoke of the Northern Court, of Ellie's mother's people, of the family that had been slaughtered and erased from history. Her power exploded outward in a wave of silver starlight that sent Ravenna skidding backward. The ice rose at Ellie's command, beautiful and terrible, forming blades and spears that hung in the air like frozen stars. "My name is Ellie. I am the last daughter of the Northern Court, and you will remember that before this is over." She attacked, and for the first time, Ravenna had to defend. The ice blades rained down like a deadly storm, forcing the High Priestess to dodge and weave and shield. Their powers clashed in the center of the arena, Starlight meeting fire, the impact sending shockwaves through the crowd. They were evenly matched now, but Ellie could feel her strength waning. She was burning through her reserves too quickly, while Ravenna had centuries of endurance training. She needed to end this, fast. Dylan's words echoed in her mind. Find her weakness. Ellie watched Ravenna's movements, the way she favored her left side, the way her shields always formed a half-second slower on her right. An old injury, perhaps? Or a gap in her training? There. That was the opening she needed. Ellie feinted left, then struck right with a spear of pure ice magic. Ravenna's shield came up too slow, and the spear grazed her ribs, drawing first blood. The crowd erupted. Ravenna's face contorted with rage. "You dare! You insignificant worm! I will tear you apart!" She abandoned all strategy, all control, and attacked with pure fury. Fire consumed the arena, a killing inferno meant to burn everything to ash. But fire was heat and chaos, and ice was cold and order. Ellie stood in the center of the flames and reached deep into her power, into the legacy of her ancestors, into the ancient magic that had slept in her blood waiting for this moment. She pulled the heat from the air, freezing it, crystallizing it, until the fire became ice and the ice became starlight, and the starlight became a cage around Ravenna. The High Priestess struggled, screaming curses, but the ice held firm. Ellie walked forward until she stood face to face with her opponent through the crystalline bars. Yield. "Never! I am High Priestess of the Southern Court. I do not yield to mongrel half-breeds." "Then I am sorry. But you challenged me. You made the rules." She closed her hand into a fist, and the ice cage contracted, pressing against Ravenna from all sides. Not enough to kill, but enough to immobilize completely. The High Arbiter's voice rang out. "Lady Ravenna is unable to continue combat. Ellie of the Northern Court is declared victor!" The crowd went wild, half cheering, half outraged. Ellie released the cage and Ravenna collapsed, gasping, her pride shattered along with her armor. And then Dylan was there, pulling Ellie into his arms, his joy and relief palpable. "You did it. You magnificent, impossible woman. You did it." She clung to him, shaking with exhaustion and leftover adrenaline. "I thought I was going to die." "But you did not. You fought and won, and now no one can question your right to stand at my side." The High Arbiter approached, his ancient face creased with what might have been approval. "Ellie of the Northern Court, you have proven your worth through trial by combat. Do you accept the position of soul-bonded consort to His Eternal Majesty, King Dylan, with all the responsibilities and honors that entails?" She looked up at Dylan, at the hope and love shining in his storm-gray eyes. "I do, with all my heart." "Then, by the power vested in me as High Arbiter of the Eternal Court, I declare this soul bond recognized and sealed. All hail the King and his Queen." The crowd took up the chant, even those who had jeered her moments before. Hail the king! Hail the queen! Dylan kissed her again, claiming her before all the assembled court, and their soul marks flared brilliant gold and silver, visible to everyone. The magic of their bond poured outward in waves, and when it receded, a crown of starlight and ice rested on Ellie's head, not placed there by any hand, but formed by the power itself in recognition of her sovereignty. My queen, my soul, my Ellie. My king, my fate, my Dylan. The coronation ceremony that followed was a blur of pageantry and ritual. Ellie stood beside Dylan on a dais of living crystal, while the high lords and ladies of all the courts swore their fealty. Even Ravenna, defeated and humiliated, was forced to kneel and acknowledge Ellie's right to the throne. When it was finally over, Dylan led her to the royal chambers, a suite of rooms that overlooked the entire city, where gardens grew in midair and fountains sang with enchanted voices. "What do you think of your new home, Your Majesty?" She spun to face him, still wearing the starlight crown, still glowing with residual magic. "I think I'm going to need time to adjust. Yesterday I was scrubbing pots in a kitchen. Today I'm queen of the eternal court." "You were always meant for this. The crown recognizes what I saw from the first moment, that you are extraordinary." He drew her close, his hands spanning her waist. "But if this is not what you want, if the weight of it is too much, we can leave. Abdicate. Find somewhere quiet and live simply. I would give up my throne in a heartbeat for you." "You would do that? Give up everything you are?" "You are all I am now. Everything else is just circumstance." She kissed him softly, tenderly, pouring all her love and gratitude into it. "Then I choose this. I choose you. I choose to stand beside you and learn what it means to be queen. Because you were right, I am stronger than I knew, and I want to use that strength to make a difference." "Then let me show you exactly what being queen of this realm entails." He swept her into his arms and carried her to the bedchamber, where the stars themselves seemed to watch through crystalline windows. Their soul marks blazed as their powers entwined, gold and silver becoming one radiant light that filled the chamber with warmth and joy and the unbreakable promise of forever. Outside, the city celebrated its new queen long into the night. The orphan kitchen servant who had saved a dying stranger in the forest and discovered she was destined to rule beside an immortal king. The last heir of the northern court who had reclaimed her birthright through courage and power and an unshakable will to survive. And in the royal chambers, wrapped in Dylan's arms, Ellie finally understood what her mother had tried to protect her from. Not her heritage, but the burden of it. The weight of crowns and courts and endless political maneuvering. But she also understood something her mother might never have learned. She did not have to carry that burden alone. "Dylan? Thank you for seeing me, for seeing past the servant girl to who I really was underneath." He tightened his arms around her. "I did not see past anything. I saw all of you, the servant and the queen, the frightened girl and the fierce warrior, the lonely orphan, and the woman who would risk everything for a stranger. I saw you, Ellie, completely, and I loved every part. I love you too. And I will spend eternity proving that you made the right choice in accepting this bond, in accepting me." She drifted to sleep in his embrace, the starlight crown fading into mist as peace claimed her. And if she dreamed of the future, of battles yet to come, of enemies who would challenge her right to stand beside the Immortal King, of the legacy she would build and the changes she would bring to the courts, she also dreamed of Dylan beside her through it all, her soul match, her king, her home. The forest where they had met was quiet now, the blood washed away by fresh snow. But the magic of that meeting lingered, written into the very fabric of the realm. A servant had saved a king. An orphan had claimed a crown. And in doing so, Ellie had proven that destiny cared nothing for stations or circumstances, only for the content of one's heart and the strength of one's will. She had been nobody. Now she was queen. And this was only the beginning. Did you like this story? Comment if you want a part 2. Make sure to subscribe for more.